Okay, yes, yeah. We talked about how the World War started, like what were the main causes, and we talked about a number of things, and yeah, and we say that it took 4 years for the world for the war, 4 years and is it 3 months for it to come to an end. And when it came to an end, there were still problems that were coming up, like that's where we can talk about the Treaty of Versailles, whereby there were problems because the victorious nations were saying that the victorious nations were Britain, there was US, Italy, and France. They were saying that the war was mainly caused by Germany, and Germany had to go through a lot of punishments, right? They said, okay, we are going to punish Germany because it's the one that caused everything, that caused all the wars, like that caused the war to start. And because most countries lost a lot of money, they lost a lot of people, like a lot of people died because almost 22 million people died during that war, right? That's such a huge number. So a lot of people died during the war, and then people's economies, like countries economies, were like very bad, like they were like facing some huge challenges because of they were facing like they were facing like some problems because they lost a lot of money, like what I've said. So economies started like going down, especially in Germany, when Germany was asked to pay what we call reparations so that they could pay for what they had done. So Germany had to go through a lot of that process whereby they were being accused of starting the war. So there was a lot of inflation in German. There was a lot of the government, they were powerless because they were told to reduce their army. They were told to pay reparations of about 33 million. They were told to give most of their some of their land, I think about 15% of their land, to give it away. And so they suffered a lot. So this is the time when Germany got to a point where it was suffering inflation, whereby if they want to buy something in maybe even bread, they would have to go with a whole bag full of money, right? I think those who are living in Zimbabwe, all of you guys are in Zimbabwe, right? have have seen that, oh, maybe you didn't say it because maybe you were probably not yet done, because not yet born, sorry, because it happened in the year 2000, whereby a lot whereby when you wanted to go and buy bread, you take a bag with you, a bag full of money. That's the kind of inflation that was happening in Germany, whereby if you find something you want to buy it today it will be 50, if 50 today it will be 50 to, let's say, dollars. And if you go again tomorrow it will be 60, and if you go the day after tomorrow it will be 80. And it was like you can't buy things with one price for 1 week. Sometimes they would actually double the price in a day. If you buy something in a shop now for $50, and then if you go back around three, it will be maybe $80 already. That's the kind of inflation that Germany was facing, because of the because it had lost a lot of money, people, and land, and it had nothing, right? So the inflation rate was very, very bad. So they lost a lot of stuff. So that was the end of the World War I, whereby they said, okay, so who caused this war? Whoever caused the World War I is going to pay for it. And they all concluded that it was Germany. But to some extent, it wasn't fair, because let's look at the causes that we were talking about, right? We talked about a number of causes that we said, these causes that we said they caused world war Okay, let's have a look at them and see if Germany was really to blame in this whole in this whole thing, because it was kind of not fair, because you can't blame only one country and say it caused the war, because there were other countries that also were part of it. Because if a person doesn't go to war on their own, right? So everyone else who was involved was supposed to also was supposed also to pay for it, but it was sort of unfair. That's when Germany got to a point and said, okay, they were put in a corner. They were told that you should sign and agree that you surely did not they were put in a corner, and they were told you surely should accept the blame that you caused the war. And they were given an alternate and they were given an ultimatum that it's either you sign that you sign you taking the blame, or you just you get your country invaded. So they had no choice. They just had to do this, the like the sign, and then agree to whatever that was being said. It was put like in a corner. So who is to blame for the World War? So Germany was blamed, but many countries actually share the responsibility. Austria, Serbia, Germany, France, and Russia. So all these countries were to blame in this whole thing. We can say we are blaming one person, or we can say we are blaming one country, because all of them were all involved in this whole thing, right? We are talking about the World War. So the four underlying causes, we talked about them. We talked about militarism, we talked about alliance system, we talked about imperialism, and we talked about nationalism. So like what militarism, I know we talked about it already, but we can just go through it again. There is no problem. So when you're talking about militarism, we're saying glorification and building up of armed forces, powerful military, greatness, respect, and fear of other countries. Large standing armies with the ability to mobilize quickly were valued. And then an association of countries, an agreement of defense or common policies were formed for the purpose of keeping peace in Europe. Ironic, because they actually pushed all of Europe into war. Then there was the Triple Alliance. We're talking about the alliances now, the Triple Entente. And yeah, these were the alliance that were there. We talked about the alliances already. We're just going through imperialism when powerful countries tried to dominate other countries. European nations were competing for colonies in Africa. So we are saying when we're saying imperialism, right? So European nations were now competing for colonies in Africa. So when at the end of World War, when other countries decided that it's Germany that had caused all this war and everything else, they still had to they still had to they still had to take like all the colonies that Germany had, right? They took them away, and then they shared them amongst themselves. So and then nationalism was also another cause of the World War, right? We're talking about deep devotion to extreme pride in one's nation, right? It led to intense competition between nations. By 1900, there were six great powers in Europe: Great Britain, France, Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Then nationalism, we talked about this before. We're not going to get much into detail on this one. And we also talked about, okay, we talked about this already. In the last lesson, we were also talked about the spark that started World War, whereby we're talking about the assassination of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, right, and his wife Sophie. right? Which is normally referred to as the Sarajevo incident in the books of history. And then, okay, sorry. Okay, this is Franz Ferdinand, then this is the Germans row, right? Who can read under this slide on Germans row for me?
I can. Okay. Son Franz Joseph and his ally Casimir Wilhelm II, because Ferdinand was royalty. William II gave Joseph a blank check, promise of unconditional support no matter what the cost. A-H wanted to crush Serbia and thought this is a perfect excuse.
Okay, and okay, let me do this. And the ultimatum. Who can read under the ultimatum for me?
I can.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
July 23rd, 1914. Austria-Hungary gave Serbia a very harsh ultimatum and only 48 hours to reply. Serbia met 11 out of 12 demands, but A-H was unwilling to negotiate. July 28, 1914, A-H declared war on Serbia.
Okay. Austria, when we say AH, we are saying Austria-Hungary, right? So we're talking about some of the things that actually caused the war to start, right? So we're trying to prove that it wasn't only Germany that caused the war, right? That's why we're talking about this. We see that Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Russia begins to mobilize in Serbia's defense. Germany declares war on Russia. Germany declares war on France, and then it also invades Belgium. And then Great Britain declares war on Germany. So to a certain extent, Germany was actually involved, right? And we had two sides, the Allied powers and the Central powers. The Allied powers consisted of Great Britain, France, Russia, Serbia, Belgium, Japan, and Italy. And then Central powers were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, Ottoman Empire, which is now Turkey. And then, okay. Okay, I'm looking for, there's something that I want to. So the war was like, it caused a lot of problems, right? This is the time when after the war, immediately after the World War One, that's when we see economies started like going down, the depression of the economies, like economies started to go down, like because of the World War, because many countries were actually affected in terms of their economy and everything else. They were actually okay. There's a slide that I'm looking for. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to look for a slide that I want us to actually talk about. Okay, maybe let's leave that for now. So yeah, so that's basically what we're talking about in the World War, what how the World War started, and what is happening, like what happened during the time, and also like after the war, and also after the war, how the countries are got to suffer because of the war, right? So it was actually a very difficult moment for most countries, because they had to, to try and fight with their economies and things like that, right? So okay,